Greetings, podcast listeners. Welcome to the first episode of my series about Mussolini's dictatorship over Italy. In this episode, I'll be speaking about the state of Italy following the First World War. Let's begin by understanding why Italy joined the First World War. Upon the outbreak of war on the 28th of July, 1914, Italy declared neutrality. However, beginning in August, the Allies began to negotiate with Italy about joining the First World War on their side. Finally, on April 26, 1915, the Treaty of London was signed. As an agreement made by Britain, France, and Russia, it aimed at encouraging Italy to join the First World War on their side. Under the Treaty of London, Italy was promised land by the Allies in return for joining the First World War. This land included South Tyrol, Trentino, Istria, Dalmatia, and the possibility of colonies in Asia and/or Africa. Following the First World War, the Italian people felt that they deserved everything they had been promised under the Treaty of London, with the addition of Fiume. They believed that this was their right, as they had suffered a loss of 650,000 soldiers, while almost 950,000 had been wounded, and Italy had also invested a significant amount of capital into their involvement in the First World War. However, partly due to poor communication caused by Prime Minister Vittorio Orlando's inability to speak English well and a lack of bargaining power, at the Paris Peace Conference on June 28, 1919, Italy was unable to obtain some of the territories they had claimed. Under the Treaty of Saint-Germain, Italy received South Tyrol, Trentino, and Istria. As Italy was unable to obtain all the land they had claimed, and some of the land they were promised in London, they called their victory in World War I a mutilated victory. The Italian government was discredited, and Prime Minister Orlando resigned. To a certain extent, this failure partly contributed to fascist and nationalist parties increasing in popularity, as the people of Italy believed that they were betrayed by the Allies in regards to the peace settlements of the First World War. Now onto some background into the Italian government. At the conclusion of the First World War, Italy was a parliamentary constitutional monarchy, and the Italian monarch was King Victor Emmanuel III. There were three prime ministers during the war: Antonio Salandra from 1914 to 1916, Paolo Boselli from 1916 to 1917, and Vittorio Orlando from 1917 to 1919. There were four more prime ministers before Mussolini, including Luigi Facta, a politician from the Italian Liberal Party who served as the last prime minister of Italy before the dictatorship of Benito Mussolini, leader of the National Fascist Party. Mussolini served as the dictator of Italy from 1925 to 1943, after serving as prime minister from October 1922 until the country transformed into a totalitarian state. When Luigi Facta was appointed prime minister, Italy was in a state of political turmoil and was dealing with Mussolini's fascist uprising. Following the March on Rome, an organized mass demonstration at the end of October 1922, led by Mussolini's National Fascist Party, Prime Minister Facta asked the king to declare martial law and order the army to stop Mussolini. However, the king refused to do so. The day after, on the 31st of October 1922, Facta and his government resigned. As a result, the king transferred political powers to the National Fascist Party, with Mussolini as the new prime minister. Mussolini was very well supported by the military, the business class, and the right wing. As a result of his appointment by the king, this means that Mussolini legally achieved his power. Before I end this episode, I would like to ask you all to reflect. How would you define the terms dictatorship and totalitarian? Firstly, I would define dictatorship as a type of leadership where one person or a small group of people has control over the affairs and governing of an entire country and all aspects of its citizens' lives. For example, Joseph Stalin, leader of the Soviet Union, once said, "One death is a tragedy. 1 million is a statistic." In the case of Stalin's rule, he had absolute control over the entire Soviet Union, and literally had the ability to decide between a person's life and death. This is evident as he deliberately killed 6 million people, while indirectly his policies caused 9 million deaths in total. Secondly, I would define totalitarianism as an ideology where the government is controlled by one political party, and the leading party controls all aspects of life and all areas of a country. For example, Mussolini created a totalitarian state with the creation of the Fascist Grand Council. The council decides policies for the country without the input of non-fascists in the government, essentially creating a one-party rule. Furthermore, in the Italian general elections of 1929 and 1934, Italy was the only legally permitted party, and as a result, the National Fascist Party won all 400 seats, and they were definitely in the state of one-party rule. Thank you for listening to this episode of my podcast. The next episode will be released at least 1 week after this episode is published. Please subscribe to be notified when the next episode releases. The following podcast is based on the Cambridge A-Level History curriculum.